Good evening. Welcome to the November 12th, 2018 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Councilman Baker lead us in the invocation, and then we'll have a special treat with our Pledge of Allegiance following, and I'll announce that then. But please stand for our invocation.
Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day and thanks for the blessings you've given each and every one of us here in the city of Troy and beyond. We ask that you continue to bless us this evening, providing guidance at the council table for us as we work through city issues and important matters. We ask that you be with all of the citizens of Troy, keeping them safe and healthy and prosperous and guided on the right path. We also thank you, Lord, for all of our veterans as we celebrate Veterans Day today. We will never forget their sacrifice, their service, all they have done for this country. And please ask that you always be with them and their families. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now please remain standing as we have Cub Scout Pack 1705 from Hill Elementary School is going to come forward and lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance. So come forward. Please stand around the podium there. I'm sorry, they didn't give me that. We also have Pack 26 from Avondale with us also. Now I see somebody's really anxious to get to the mic, and you're going to kind of take okay, there we go. Okay. Are we ready? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Thank you, Cub Scouts.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. He wants to sit there. He's on camera. City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Abraham.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
Councilmember Pennington.
Here.
All present. B2 is the 2018-2019 City Council installation and procedures. B2A is the adoption of the City Council Rules of Procedure. Would somebody like to move that resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Abraham.
I will move item B2A, adoption of City Council Rules of Procedure. Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby adopts the rules of procedure of the City Council of the City of Troy as recorded by the City Clerk in the minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Abraham and supported by Councilman Baker, that we adopt the City Council Rules of Procedure that are posted in the agenda packet as presented. Any discussion on those rules of procedure? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Abraham.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yes.
Motion passes. B2B is the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem. Somebody like to move that resolution? Seeing none. Oh. Mayor Pro Tem Abraham.
I will move item B2B, appointment of Mayor Pro Tem. Rules and procedure for the City Council addresses the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem as follows. The selection of Mayor Pro Tem shall rotate annually in the following order: Baker, Hamilton, Henderson, Pennington, Hoderick, Abraham. So resolved that the Troy City Council hereby appoints Ethan Baker to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the City Council of the City of Troy for a term scheduled to expire at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 11th, 2019.
Support.
Excuse me, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I couldn't understand what she was saying.
Please move forward if you can't hear very well. We'll try to turn the microphones up. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Abraham, seconded by Councilman Hamilton, that we appoint as Mayor Pro Tem Ethan Baker to serve as the Mayor Pro Tem for the City Council of the City of Troy for a term scheduled to expire at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, November 11th, 2019. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. Congratulations. Now we will have the swearing in of Mayor Pro Tem Ethan Baker. If you would please go forward.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, the Charter of the City of Troy, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Mayor Pro Tem in and for the City of Troy, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Seamless.
Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem Baker. See how many times I messed that up tonight. Before we proceed, I just want to say what a pleasure it has been to have Councilwoman Abraham as Mayor Pro Tem for the last year. Your professionalism just shines through, and I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for a difficult year, but your professionalism always shined through. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next on the agenda is the adoption of the Code of Ethics for the City Council. Would somebody like to move that resolution? Councilwoman Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move B2D, the adoption of Code of Ethics for City Council. Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby adopts the Code of Ethics of the City Council of the City of Troy as recorded by the City Clerk in the minutes of this meeting.
Support.
By Councilwoman Hoderick and supported by Councilman Henderson, that we adopt the Code of Ethics for the City Council as printed in the agenda packet this evening and read into the record. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the adoption of the Code of Ethics for boards and committees. Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move B2E, adoption of Code of Ethics for boards and committees. Resolved, the Troy City Council hereby adopts the Code of Ethics for boards and committees of the City of Troy as recorded by the City Clerk in the minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Baker, that we approve adoption of the Code of Ethics for boards and committees as printed in the agenda packet and read into the record. Discussion. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the proposed resolution to allow Pennington Collision to remain on the list of eligible vendors. Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move B2F, proposed resolution to allow Pennington Collision to remain on a list of eligible vendors. Whereas the owner of Pennington Collision is also an elected city council member, and whereas Section 6.12A of the Troy City Charter requires that in order for there to be any possible business relationship between the city and a business in which a city council member or her immediate family has a pecuniary interest, the other city council members must agree unanimously to pass a resolution making the business eligible to conduct business with the city of Troy. Now therefore be it resolved, the Troy City Council hereby recuses Councilmember Pennington from voting. Be it further resolved, the Troy City Council declares that Pennington Collision is eligible to conduct business with the City of Troy as allowed by the Troy City Charter, Section 6.12A.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilwoman Hoderick, that we approve the proposed resolution to allow Pennington Collision to remain on the list of eligible vendors as printed and read into the record. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is the Cooperative Purchasing Programs Resolution G. Councilman Pennington.
I'd like to move.
B2G.
Yes, thank you. B2G. Let me get there. Cooperative Purchasing Programs Resolution. Whereas City Administration recommends participation in cooperative purchasing programs when in the best interest of the city, therefore be it resolved that Troy City Council authorizes continued participation in the cooperative purchasing programs listed below to satisfy bid requirements when in the best interest of the city and approves blanket authorization for the 2018-2019 fiscal year to administratively approve purchases for operating supplies and services above the $10,000 limit obtained through an approved cooperative, except for those Capital 401 account purchases which shall be presented to Troy City Council for review and approval. They include My Deal, State of Michigan, Oakland County Cooperative Purchasing Program, Suburban Library Cooperative, REMC, Regional Media Center Association of Michigan, NIGP, U.S. Communities, MICTA, Michigan Collegiate Telecommunications Association, National IPA, National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance, Sourcewell, formerly NGPA, National Joint Power Alliance. Be it further resolved that Troy City Council approves blanket authorizations or authorization to administratively approve purchases for operating supplies and services above the $10,000 limit obtained through an approved cooperative, except for those Capital 401 fund purchases which shall be presented to Troy City Council for review and approval.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Pennington, supported by Councilman Hamilton, that we approve B2G, which is the Cooperative Purchasing Programs Resolution, as read into the record this evening. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Whew. That concludes the City Council agenda, almost. Next on the agenda are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 3 this evening. C1 is America Recycles 2018. I'd like to ask Pam Brady to meet me at the podium, and I'd like to present a proclamation. same thing. Remember? Good evening, Pam.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you for doing this.
I remember when we did the tour at the recycling center earlier this year that our proclamations are posted in the office there, and it takes the city great pride to have those proclamations posted in the offices there. And it gets better and better every year. So Pam, on behalf of the City of Troy, it's my honor to read this proclamation, America Recycles 2018. Whereas the world has changed a lot in the past century, from individually packaged food servings to disposable diapers, more garbage is generated now than ever before. The average American discards 7.5 pounds of garbage every day. Our garbage, our solid waste stream, all goes to landfills, where it is compacted and buried. And whereas, to focus the nation's attention on the importance of recycling, businesses, industries, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and individuals have joined together to celebrate America Recycles 2018 and are encouraging their employees, staff, customers, membership, and all citizens to pledge to buy more recycled content products starting today. And whereas participating in America Recycles 2018 is one way our citizens can help raise awareness about the need to reduce waste by reusing, recycling, and buying recycled products. And whereas the more we recycle, the less garbage winds up in our landfills and incineration plants. By reusing aluminum, paper, glass, plastics, and other materials, we can save production and energy cost and reduce by up to 75% the negative impacts that the extraction and processing of virgin materials has on the environment. Plastics made from precious and non-renewable petroleum and aluminum, which is mined by bauxite, are especially important to recycle. And whereas recycling helps protect the resources, our environment, and our quality of life, the entire loop, reduce, reuse, recycle, is completed when you buy products made from recycled material. And whereas from July 2017 to June 2018, the City of Troy recycled 6,258 tons of glass, paperboard, cardboard, newspaper material, metal, tin, and plastic, and 8,800 tons of compost. That's a lot of stuff. And whereas state and community leaders need to spread the word about the excellent programs they have established, the growth of markets for recyclable materials, and the importance of buying recycled products. So now therefore it be resolved that the City of Troy hereby proclaims America Recycles 2018 in Troy and urges all Troy residents to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Be it further resolved that America Recycles 2018 is celebrated year-round to encourage people to recycle and buy products from recycled materials. The theme for America Recycles 2018 is Keep America Beautiful, Recycle. Presented this 12th day of November 2018, Pam, signed by myself, all members of City Council. Thanks for what you do. I know you're not going to take credit, but you are the leader in Troy. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will put this up in the tour room of the recycling center, which is in Troy, and which I'm very proud is in Troy. It's in our backyard, and that's wonderful. I am Pam Brady, League of Women Voters of Troy Area Natural Resources Chair. I am also on the SACRA Recycling Committee. Please note that my name is not on this proclamation anywhere. I am accepting it on behalf of all the Troy residents and workers who do recycle. Last year, SACRA gave us 64-gallon carts to put in our recyclables and put at the curb. And our recycling numbers are up over 20%. Not to stop there, SACRA has added a new way to help us. Generally, wizard is a word coming into popular use to mean anything that gives us information to get through a project we are doing. For example, computer wizards help us by giving us information on how to load a new program or reset our preferences for Windows or Apple applications. Similarly, SACRA has come up with something to help us recycle. It's called the Waste Wizard. It is now easier than ever to find out whether to recycle or dispose of an item through this new SACRA Waste Wizard tool. This search tool will assist you in determining which items can be reused, recycled, composted, or disposed of. It's as easy as typing in the item you wish to learn more about and receiving that information immediately. To access it, simply go online and type www.sacra.org and click on Waste Wizard and then type in what you want to dispose of. Residents can access the Waste Wizard on Troy's refuse waste page, God, I can't say that, as well as www.troymi.gov/refuse. I tried them, they work, and it is easy. Keep on recycling, Troy. What better way to show staff we care about our city and our future? Thank you. All those water bottles can be recycled.
Mayor, before we get off this topic, I just wanted to bring something to everybody's attention. That recycling is up, waste is down, and it brings to the bottom line of the city about $192,000 a year. So kudos to you. Thank you.
That's real money.
It's real money.
Real money. Thank you. Thank you, Pam, for being a leader in that. C2 is the sign presentation. I'll call upon Stephanie Flesher, our marketing coordinator, to lead the presentation. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So it's weird kind of being up here. I'm not usually up here.
Please use the microphone, though. We're recording you.
I know. That's why I'm like... Okay, so city signage. This has been a project... Whew. It's been a long one.
Yes, it has.
So, before we get started, I would like to thank the signage design team, because creative projects do take a while, and they did remain patient and engaged the whole time, so I really appreciate that. The city signage is a strategy. In the project, we went through a competitive bid process. We worked with KMA. They also did the library signs. And they really did a great job. And I believe and hope that you like them as well. So this is our current signage. We do not have gateway signs in the city. This is all we have. The pink dots represent where those signs are currently located. And just note, the new city signs that will hopefully replace these smaller boundary signs, it may not be a one-to-one comparison, so not every pink dot may not be a new sign, but we'll try. And then these are the proposed boundary signs. So if you look at the new logo, we have the navy, the orange, the green, and the aqua. And these signs will rotate in color throughout the city. So every pink dot will essentially be a different color. And then as noted, we do not have a gateway sign. So one of the things that the group did was decide what the best location was for these gateway signs. So we did come to a conclusion that either end of Big Beaver, so one at Big Beaver and Gulfview, one at Big Beaver and DeQuinder, those are essentially like our largest gateways. So location 1 is our border with Birmingham, and location 2 is our border with Sterling Heights. And then these are the proposed gateway signs. So it is 10 feet wide, 6 feet high, and it's also illuminated, eternally illuminated with LEDs, so it'll light up at night. And then here are some additional measurements and kind of a side view to the signs. I think these are really dynamic and they're not traditional, and I think that they will really set us apart from our other neighboring communities, especially if you go to Big Beaver and DeQuinder and you look at the Sterling Heights sign. I just really think that this will set us apart from all of our neighboring communities. So before we actually get these fabricated, we wanted your feedback and any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Stephanie. I know this has been a project for a number of years now, as I recall. It seems like you've been really working.
Yeah, and we also, when it became a strategy and they were voted on, we also didn't get started on it right away, so.
But I really appreciate all the time you've taken on the committee. It's obviously not an easy undertaking, and you've worked really hard, and you seem very proud of it, and I appreciate that, and I like the direction we're going. I just have a couple questions, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to answer, but I'll start this way. Are we getting away from use of the slogan, City of Tomorrow Today? Is that something that the design team thought was not relevant anymore?
I would prefer to, we're not getting rid of it, but I prefer to kind of not include it all that often. And I don't necessarily, in the designing process, we didn't see a really good place where that could be fit in.
And then just what are the gateway signs? What are they made of? What is that?
We actually don't, I believe it'll be coated, like coated steel, like it's not, but it won't rust. But again, I think we'll find out more during the fabrication process. But yeah, we did discuss materials very loosely. This company is only designing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know if there's a conversation. My other question is, upkeep of those signs or what kind of maintenance they'll require.
Yeah, we're going for definitely like a low maintenance option, but again, like we'll find out more during the fabrication process.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I saw Councilman Pennington go up first.
Can you show that the gateway sign again, Stephanie?
That one?
Yeah, that's a sleek design. I like that. And if it's a coating, it's probably like a powder coating. And to answer your question, that is low maintenance. It doesn't rust out as quickly as paint, and it's probably a thicker coating than a paint. But so a question would be: is it just the city of Troy being illuminated, or is it the other colors illuminated also?
But that is an option, and again, that can be explored. For right now, I think they just, in the mock-up design that they gave us, they just illuminated the city of Troy, but there is option to illuminate the colors as well.
Yeah, I like that. That looks nice.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Abraham? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller?
I just want to make sure we clarify that the contract that we conducted was just the design, the design, not the design of the actual construction. That's what we would be doing next, and we would be coming back to City Council to authorize that contract. And we would have more specific details on the material specifications.
Understood. Thank you. Councilwoman Abraham.
Perhaps my question might be more appropriate once we have this come back with the construction design. My question was also about lighting and whether the entire sign was going to be lit. Is there backlighting where, lights would be projected on there?
For now, we just kind of explored the idea of it being lit internally. Okay. But again, like during fabrication, we can go through all of the options like we did with the actual creation of the sign.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So comment tonight is basically on the design, correct? Okay. Councilman Henderson.
We just went through a lengthy situation with our LED signs along Rochester Road, so I want to address that specifically. So does this sign fit within that sign ordinance, or is this going to be above that?
Yes, it will.
And especially with regard to the lightness or illumination.
Yeah, it won't be like bright enough to blind anybody, that's for sure. And we did hesitate. We had this actually prepared for quite a while, but we wanted to wait until all the sign stuff was done to bring this forward. It will fit within the new ordinance for sure, like as far as luminosity is concerned. I think it's candles.
And size, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, and size.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually had them downsize the design per the ordinance.
Okay.
Anyone else? Just a comment, I'm been here a long time in the city of Troy, and getting rid of the gazebo and the slogan is probably going to get us some email, especially the slogan. But as you said, you're not proposing to get rid of that. It's just that you might not even be able to read it as you're passing the sign anyways.
In that,
right.
Absolutely.
So I understand why you're doing it this way, probably. And I agree with Councilman Pennington. I think it's got a sleek kind of design to it. And if we are going to change, I would leave it up to the experts myself.
I think it'll definitely make a positive impact, for sure.
But personally, I think it's time to get rid of the gazebo. Comments from council? Sounds like you got some positive comments on the design. Good luck, and we look forward to bringing it back for further discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. C3, Trails and Pathways, a public engagement presentation. I see Kurt Bovenseep, DPW Director, and Lauren Carlson from Carlisle Ward. Good evening.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Yes, as you mentioned, this is Lauren Carlson with Carlisle Wortman, who we've engaged to particularly be involved with the public engagement component of Phase 2 of the Trail and Pathway. One of my most favorite part of the job is being up here and talking about a project that I'm very passionate about and committed to move forward, and because I truly believe our constituents demand this and have for quite some time. So moving this project forward, we had Phase 1, which was the grand opening on August 1st in 2018, and I know many of you took part in that walk and appreciated much of the positive feedback that we heard. That was the theme of the trail. It was, I can't believe I'm in Troy when I'm on this trail. Who knew this was back here? What beautiful landscape. So most of the feedback that we've heard is in regards to that. So what we were tasked to do is to continue that theme forward. So what we did is we went back to the original plan that we presented several years ago and looked at ways we could modify that to pick up additional natural themes throughout the city of Troy. So that included continuing to use the school district property, which we presented at that special study session with the school district. And I have communicated with them recently, and they're still on board and very excited to be a partner in the Trail and Pathway program. And what we also recognize is we had an opportunity a little further to the north, instead of going through the subdivisions, to capture some of that natural beauty that's behind the Department of Public Works. Currently, we have what we refer to as paper streets. So we have right-of-way in a large majority of this proposed trail going through these streets to head to the north to the Troy School District property. So that is already exists. In fact, there are some existing walks in that highlighted blue area leading into the Troy School District property and connecting Eveline and Latonia and Randall and Eveline there. So there is some existing walks right now. As I mentioned, Troy School District is very excited to be a partner. We've communicated with them, some staff and myself. We walked back there. We discovered that even looking at an aerial doesn't do it justice. There's a beautiful open drain back there, very similar to what we designed in phase 1. As we travel further to the north, we go through the Public Works Department. That gets us all the way almost to Long Lake, which is our goal. Our goal is to do this mile stretch to get us to Long Lake, and then eventually get up to Sylvan Glen Lake Park, and then branch off from there. The main goal is connecting this to the Clinton River Trail. Our trail system, having a regional connection, is something that's very important. So talking about easements in the Department of Public Works, we currently have an easement that's it's a darker green shade there. We have a 40-foot easement that is, the legal description is for street purposes. The legal department has done some investigation, and the Trail and Pathway would fit into that legal description, so that's already available for us to put a Trail and Pathway there. That leads us into the Department of Public Works property. The Goodman property, which is privately owned, we were in discussions with some developers that represent the Goodman family, and they are very excited to partner with the city and develop some sort of trail. However, I will say the Goodmans for years have been looking to develop that manufacturing plant off of Rochester Road and that vacant property that abuts Long Lake. Although this is an option, I think we're many, many years out from this being a reality. So which moves us to a different route to connect to Long Lake. Coincidentally, I was driving through the subdivision and saw that there was an estate sale at this house, which typically indicates that the house is going to be up for sale. I approached the property owners, and yes, in fact, the house is going to be up for sale. I've spoken to the family. City staff has met with the family, and they're willing to go into discussions with the city on options to acquire this land so we can have a way to get out to Long Lake. And I'm going to turn it over to Lauren now to talk specifically about the differences in public engagement for this trail to what we have done in the past.
Thank you. Yes, as you said, my name is Lauren Carlson, and although this is the first time that I'm meeting many of you, our firm, of course, Carlisle Wortman, has been a partner with the city for many years. And it's a pleasure for us to be able to be part of this project. As you said, we are heading up the engagement process, and we're really going about this in a results-based engagement process where we're really going to focus on the benefits and the potential of this trail. We have some fantastic representations here in Michigan, a number of trail towns that have now been identified to really show how well a community can interact with a trail and what a benefit it can bring to the community. And so through the engagement process, our plan is to provide information to the residents, to bring the residents along into the fold of information to discuss the impacts and concerns up front so that there's really no so that there is full transparency. And then, of course, our main goal is to empower the residents to help them become stewards of the trail and of the neighborhood network, and help them really to be the caretakers, as this will be in some of their side yards. So in addition to those parts of the presentation that we will provide, I'm going the wrong way here. There we go. We'll also have some, not only examples around the state, but also these are some of the graphic representations that we'll be using where the technology really comes in to showcase what can be done. So we'll take panoramic images like this one here, which I believe is on Eveline, and we will turn it into we'll give a graphic overlay to show the dimensions and the graphic representation of what it'll look like. And then we'll bring into here we go. Possibly, no. Oh, there we go. We'll further the graphic representations to show what the trail is proposed to look like, what the actual dimensions and measurements from their homes are, and what sort of design we're talking about here, so that it is represented not only through the images, but as they can see in their own neighborhood.
So next steps. Next steps would be to begin negotiations with the owners of the Belzaire. And as I stated, we have met with them, and surprisingly, they're very anxious to talk with the city, and they're well aware that our buying power cannot exceed market value. So they're well aware of that. This particular family, the father built the home, and the mother is now in assisted living. And we were very transparent with the family that there is a chance, if this were to move forward, if council were to approve this plan, that the house would have to be removed. And didn't know if that was going to be a problem with the family. And I believe the mother's comment was, "I'm done with it. I like the idea of this carrying on this tradition of community." So there is an acceptance with that. So we were very transparent in that whole situation. Next steps, again, would be to our consultant for design is Hubbell Roth & Clark, so engage them in beginning this design. There's not as much wetlands as what we had in the phase 1, so design should be a little bit easier. Access may be a little bit more difficult, but wetlands is not as prevalent than in the phase 1. This could result in a bid spring, summer of 2019, so we would solicit bids. And then construction summer, fall 2019, could be completion in 2019 with restoration in 2020. So again, the intent of this presentation was to bring council up to speed on the idea we have on how to continue the trail to the north, still having a goal to connect some of our major parks, and ultimately connect to the Clinton River Trail by using some of the natural features we have in the city of Troy. Happy to answer any questions.
Kurt, questions? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate the update. As always, the presentation makes a lot of questions go through, I think probably several of our minds as we come up with things and we hear things that are new, but it's very, very innovative and way to take us to look at things moving forward. So appreciate that. I do love the trail that's been constructed so far. I've been on it several times. I think if you haven't been, it's a really unique part of Troy that you wouldn't expect. Like everyone says, you don't expect. You don't feel like you're in Troy when you're there, but it really is beautiful and it's well done. So thank you for all who made that happen. I have a little bit of, my heart started racing a little bit when I saw the map, and that initial trail coming north off of Wattles is right through the neighborhood. And my concern is something about this meeting gets printed in the paper and all of a sudden we've got a neighborhood that thinks we're putting a trail right through their side yards. And I'm just wondering what we can do or what can be done to prevent something like that from creating kind of mass hysteria without the proper information and knowledge being out there, and if we have any strategies or thoughts on how we can kind of try to cut that off at the pass a little bit.
having been part of a neighborhood uprising over this project.
Sure. We had many discussions on whether to notify residents before presenting to council or presenting council the idea before notifying residents. This area has been notified. They haven't been engaged in the past because it was part of the original plan. I know several of the residents are actually in favor of a trail. One resident built a house right next to where the trail is being proposed for her daughter, knowing that one day a trail was going to be there, and that excitement. I also know that several people in that neighborhood are looking for connections to the Phase 1 trail. And then Carlisle and Wortman, of course, would engage them in smaller groups. Instead of inviting them all in, invite them in blocks of people so we can have a more organized conversation. We would fully expect to hear from residents as soon as I'm sure Ms. O'Parker prints this in the newspaper or people are watching at home. And we're prepared for that. And we want the opportunity to talk to them along with Carlisle and Wortman to discuss them individually, and we'll start setting those organizational meetings up pending the results of tonight's presentation, honestly.
Thank you. Councilwoman Abraham.
Thanks, Mayor. About 3 years ago, we attempted to get a grant from the state of Michigan based off of the proposed pathway at the time, and we were denied it. It was, my recollections, the feedback from the state was that it leveraged too much of the road system that was already existing. It was almost an afterthought, if you will, of a trail. This seems to be more in line with what the state would have been looking for 3 years ago when we were going for the grant. Are there any opportunity to go back to the state of Michigan looking for grant money, or is that not possible?
Yes, grants would be possible. There is one area in this proposed trail where it does not meet the AASHTO standards, which says that the trail has to be 10 foot wide, 2 foot clear zone, so a total of 14 feet total width. One of the right-of-ways leading in the Troy School District property is only 12 feet wide, so we're missing 2 feet. So we would have to work with the neighboring residents to obtain easements or potentially purchase 2 feet if possible and dedicate it right away. The grant, the TAP grant that you're speaking of that we were awarded and then denied on our second attempt, it's a long process. It prolongs the building of the trail for a year to a year and a half, depending on when the decision is made to actually apply for the TAP grant. But if that's council's direction, we certainly could go down the grant route again and apply for grants.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson.
3 questions. On the grant, we could, without the grant, we could go with a 10-foot pathway. Is that correct, essentially?
That's
if
correct.
we didn't go for grant money, we could do it the way we want to do it. So the broad question then is the grant going to be enough to be able to, would it be less expensive for us to just do it ourselves, or because we have the grant money, is it going to be more expensive because we have to acquire property? That's question one. The second one is on the Goodman property. If we go that route, are you proposing a deeded easement? Is that something that you're planning on negotiating? Because I'd hate to see us put money into a trail and then have a development come in and oops, you got to get rid of your trail. And then thirdly, the graphic that you showed going through the neighborhood, you had mentioned that there are already some paths going northward through that area. How much trail area would we not have to be disruptive with? Is that a legitimate question? So if we've already got trails there or pathways that people use, are we going to be able to utilize those into other streets, or how does that look? I see the graphic with the trees and the people standing there and everything, but is that a legitimate trail now, or is that something we have to carve through a neighborhood?
Sure. So first question, I'll try to remember them all as I work through them. The TAP grant, which is the most probably prominent grant available for trail and pathway. A lot of communities are doing the same thing we are, so it's become even more competitive to try to get money. The cost, I don't know as far, because the neighboring resident for that short distance that we would need the additional 2 feet could give us the easement. If they're good partners in this, they could give us the easement. It might not cost us any money. I think The larger answer to that is it comes down to time. It's time. We budgeted $750,000 for these phases with, to my understanding, it was that we weren't going to pursue grants. Of course we can, but we didn't take that into consideration. These phases are to be within that $750,000. If we were to go for the TAP grant, it would save us some money. How much, I don't know. It's all what we apply for and what's available through both the state of Michigan, and SEMCOG is another opportunity for transportation grants. The second question.
Deeded easement for the Goodman property.
The Goodman property will likely be a very, very large development, and when we were discussing with developers, it could be a good possibility that it's a PUD, a planned unit development. So it would be a deeded easement because with the POD there has to be some community benefit. That's the route that we discussed. It not necessarily is going to be that route, but it would be a dedicated easement for the trail and pathway through the development. And we discussed that, should we be pursuing this with that being a potential? But the Belzaire outlet onto Belzaire up to Long Lake still offers a connection to that subdivision. If we didn't have that connection, we could have multiple connections within a square mile, trailheads if you were, to be able to offer residents within the neighborhoods to enter that trail. So even if the Goodman property came to fruition, that Belzaire portion wouldn't go away. It would still create an opportunity for the residents in that subdivision to access the trail. And thirdly, the existing trails, some are paved, and we would use the existing location. Some is just a wood chip pathway that was designed specifically to get school-age children to Leonard Elementary School. So we would likely push that out. That's right on a property line. We would probably center that more to offer the residents a little bit more buffer, if you will. There are some sidewalks. There's not a sidewalk on Latonia. But there is on Randall, so that again offers more connections into the trail. We would try to use what is existing because that's what people are most familiar with now, and they seem to be okay with it because no one's calling us saying you have to get rid of the sidewalk. I hope I answered all three.
Perfect, okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hoderick.
Thank you for this update. Very, very well done. I just attended a conference where cities from around the state were talking about this, and the grant opportunity that we did try to go for several years ago, that process set us back timing-wise on moving forward with this as a priority that was brought to us by our residents. I hesitate to want to go back down that trail again because the thing that became very apparent to me at that conference is we are behind. As we've tried to struggle through how to proceed once we were not able to make that grant, effectuate that grant here, and we've started over and started with a phase one, boy, communities all across the state are marching forward, and it is an amenity that, it is something that communities value and the residents value. The other key learning there was, yes, in some communities, like what we had happen here, there's some initial pushback because people aren't so sure how this is going to work. In every single case, the residents ended up being thrilled with having a bike path near their residences and the value that brought to their homes. So, boy, I hate to sound like this, a tax and spend kind of person with our funds, but I do recall that we went through this process. We tried to make seeking the grant work to match funds, and it was a failure for us for a lot of reasons, including the fact that we couldn't even control exactly where the trails were, how wide they were. The demands of the grant overstepped what we wanted here in our community and what our residents wanted. So I'm remembering that. I'm cautious about that. I think that's why you've gone forward with phase one. Now we're looking at phase two, and my inclination is to say, boy, I hate to create another delay, which could be, as I recall, that took us 6 months, 8 months just to wait for them to get back to us once we made the request. I think there is some level of need to move forward and take advantage of what the original planners in this city put forth. I'm glad the school district is on board with that piece as well. Our schools, our parks, and the connectivity. I think it's just terrific that you're looking at it, and the engagement is critical. As Councilman Baker is saying, we really want those residents involved up front. It sounds like you're already starting to do that, and that input in making it work. But I wanted to reflect back on how we tripped all over ourselves trying to pursue that grant, and it really set us back. And I can see how far behind we are, a lot of communities around the state. I wanted to make sure I shared that.
Thank you. Councilman Pennington.
I agree with Councilman Holder. She makes a good point. We don't want to go backwards and spend a whole lot of time. I'm afraid that girl, that lady that bought that house with her little girl in mind walking that trail would be graduating out of high school and in college before we got a grant from the feds after dealing with them with a couple of other organizations that we won't bring up. So yeah, we want to move forward with, I don't think we change direction. We want to, move forward without pursuing the grant, this grant. The question I would have would be if the public were to have any inclination, any hesitations, I would send them to the existing trails we have now, because like it's been said, it's kind of a hidden gem that we have, and they need to check that out before they complain about anything going up in their backyard.
Mayor, if I could. Sure. That's a great point. Councilman Petty is directing them to phase one. We have residents that are already come forward and willing to say, I will be an advocate for this. I live right next to it. I would love to advocate for this so we can continue this to the north. We have letters from residents, emails from residents that we plan on presenting that as just information to the residents that we do engage. And as Lauren mentioned, we are taking a different approach with this, where we want this to be their trail and they're to be stewards of the trail. So we want to accommodate them. As I talked to the 40-foot easement person, so that's privately property that we have a 40-foot easement on Eckford leading into the Department of Public Works, Mr. Kappas. I approached him and just give him a heads up that we're looking to do something different. Right now we have an emergency access road for the DPW on that property. And he says, well, instantly, what are you going to do to protect my property from the trail? And my question back to him is, what would you like the city to do? And he was kind of taken back by that. Well, that's a different approach than what I'm used to, he said. He says, well, I have this idea of a fence or some greenery. I says, we can discuss that. And that's going to be our approach this time.
Sounds good. Councilwoman Abraham.
So, probably more of a comment than a question. 3 years ago when we were denied that grant, I think it took a little bit of the wind out of all of our collective sails, and we started over again. And yes, we are 3 years further behind than we wanted to be. We were already behind 3 years ago. In retrospect, and looking at this plan now, this is a far stronger plan, I think, than the one that we presented 3 years ago. I think part of it is because of phase one, and people have seen the benefit. Some of the, if you build it, they will come, and not just come, that they'll really enjoy it. So I know this has been a frustrating experience for you, for a lot of staff, certainly for our residents. I know we have a lot of comments, public comment during council meetings about trails and pathways. I think this is much closer to what people want, what they need, and what they'll come to appreciate. So I thank you for your efforts. This has been a great update. I am generally supportive of what you've proposed.
Thank you. Anyone else that hasn't spoken yet? Councilman Hamilton.
Just quickly, I'm on board with everyone. I think it's fantastic. That's all.
Can I go before you? Is that
I just have a question.
Okay.
It's not a comment. Sure. Can I ask a question? And then it might be too early, but I'm assuming that the purchase of the Belzare property, that fits within the money that's allotted and budgeted for the trails, or is that a separate expenditure outside of what we've already approved in the budget for the trails and pathways?
It would fit in this year's budget of $750,000, and the design, the land acquisition would be this year's budget, and I don't see it getting close to the $750,000 in construction being next fiscal year. So I believe, I'm fairly confident that this plan is within budget in the next 2 fiscal years.
Thank you. I'll keep it short too, like Councilman Hamilton. I certainly support what Councilwoman Hoderick said regarding the grants. I still have pains over that. And I remember we had to spend some money to hire somebody to write the grant for us to try and get the grant. So it ends up costs us money. So, and I think it did put us behind 3 years. And I see that possibly happening again, and I don't want to see that personally, because I share your passion, as you know. But looks good to me. Looks good to me to proceed forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no carryover items this evening, so we will move to public hearings. We have one public hearing this evening. E1 is the adoption of a brownfield redevelopment plan number 10 for Harrison Poolside Troy Development. Parcel numbers 20-29-326-018 and 20-29-326-017. This is off Stutz Drive, and I see Glenn Lapin, our Economic Development Specialist, is ready for a presentation, and let me open the public hearing. Good evening, Glenn.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. At its October 16th meeting, the Troy Brownfield Redevelopment Authority recommended approval of Brownfield Redevelopment Plan number 10 for Harrison Poolside Troy, which is a project located off of Stutz Drive, just north of Maple Road and adjacent to the Michigan Design Center. And for those of you that have been here in the community a while, the site consists of 2 parcels, and it used to be historically the old Birmingham dump site. So is a landfill, approximately, I think, is used as a landfill from 1957 to about 1980 or so. Thus, we received an application for brownfield redevelopment on a proposed project on that specific site. This proposed $20 million project consists of approximately 114 units, and it's a residential complex consisting of 2 3-story buildings and approximately 110,000 square feet. The 114 units, it may vary slightly. It may go up to 117, 116. The developer is planning to go through our sustainable development project process for energy improvements on the site, which may yield them an additional unit or 2 or 3 approximately, just so you're aware of that. The project was eligible for administrative review by the Planning Department. It did not need to go to Planning Commission, and it was approved with minor conditions that the developer is adhering to, and that report is in your packet of information. It is estimated that tax increment revenues for this project would reimburse the costs for the eligible activities on that site in the estimated total amount of $3,570,000, $957. That includes contingency and interest as well. So the base taxable value of that property is approximately $300,000 right now. After the development, it goes up to, it's estimated to be about $6 million at that point. Portions of that capture, the increment in that capture, gets to be reimbursed towards the developer. That's part of the Brownfield Redevelopment Plan and why we're here to help remediate some of those issues on the site so that this new development can occur. Members of the development team are with us here today. I have the developer Robert Wolfson and Elizabeth Masserang from PM Environmental. We have a few slides to go in a little bit more detail on the project and also be available to answer any questions as well. So, thank Elizabeth and Robert.
Good evening. Good to see you again.
Good evening. So as Glenn mentioned, the proposed project is located near the intersection of Coolidge Highway and Maple Road, just off Stutz Drive. And that's the parcel split you see right there. If the project moves forward, it would be proposed that those be combined into a single parcel. The land is currently vacant. As Glenn mentioned, it was formerly utilized as a landfill between 1957 and 1980. PM has gone out to the site and conducted a Phase 1 environmental site assessment as well as Phase 2 environmental site assessment. We've identified contamination associated with PCE, which is tetrachloroethylene, which is a chlorinated solvent, as well as mercury and arsenic contamination. In addition, there are geotechnical concerns with positioning buildings atop the property based on unsuitable soil conditions. The property does meet the definition of a facility as defined under Part 201 of Public Act 451. The proposed project is $20 million in private investment. Upon completion, would consist of 2 buildings totaling approximately 110,000 square feet, and then estimated to be plus or minus 114 to 117 units. It's estimated that as part of the construction of the project, 100 jobs would be created, and upon completion, 10 permanent jobs created within the city, and an additional 20 to 25 associated with ongoing property maintenance. Site work is anticipated to begin in spring of 2019 with a completion in fall 2020. As Glenn mentioned, the Brownfield Plan includes a request for up to $3.5 million in Brownfield eligible activities. There is a contingency in there. There's also interest, and it's also understood that reimbursement is ultimately only received for expenses incurred. This request is a little bit unique than the other ones we've presented in front of you in that we're also seeking assistance from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. So that $3.5 million ask is actually a 45% ask from you and a 55% ask for approval through the state. That 55% is made up of school operating millages. However, the State Treasury Department helps reimburse those to you as part of the project, so there really is no loss to any school operating millages as part of the plan. The eligible activities, as Glenn mentioned, include environmental assessment work, proposed installation of vapor barriers, removal of unsuitable and contaminated soils, and some site demolition activities, as well as the preparation of a brownfield plan and an Act 381 work plan, which requires approval from the Department of Environmental Quality. We've also provided here a proposed site layout of the property and the 2 buildings mentioned, and proposed bedroom layouts for the project. And I'd like to introduce Bob Wolfson, the developer of the project. Prior to this meeting, we distributed packets that give you a portfolio of his previous work in nearby neighboring communities. This will be his first project in Troy, and he's very excited to be here.
I am very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Pretty much I've done most of the projects in my history have been in Royal Oak. I probably have done more than most of the other people. I am a local Michigan guy, though. I'm not a big company from Chicago or anything else. But we've built 5 out of the new 11 or 12 projects over the years, so we've done quite a bit. Not necessarily in numbers, but in individual projects. We finished the building at the top was the old Herb Lumber Company, which if you saw it before, it was 80,000 square feet, and it's phenomenal inside, too. It's a very pretty project. We have another project going in Royal Oak, which is called Poolside also, which is the one below. And I think our projects are unique, different than what you typically see. We used to do in sort of a new and old industrial looking project, but they were new. And I've kind of like stepped up the game a little bit and tried to make them more classic modern, where we appeal to a different demographic or a different type of age group. And we brought a lot of people. My goal is to bring more people into Troy and look for some more projects to do here.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Thank you. Any questions from council for staff or the developer? I think we're good. That means it's a great presentation when there's no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this item this evening? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and return it to the table for resolution. Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move E1, adoption of Brownfield Redevelopment Plan Number 10 for Harrison Poolside Troy Development, parcel numbers 20-29-326-018 and 20-29-326-017 off Stutz Drive as printed.
Support.
By Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilwoman Abraham, that we approve E1, the adoption of the Brownfield Redevelopment Plan Number 10, as read and printed into the document. Any discussion? Councilman Hamilton?
All I have to say is I think it's a great project. The opportunity to turn an old dump into a new home for a lot of new Troy residents is a great thing. Thank you for bringing this to us. Appreciate it.
Any other comments? I think we all echo that. It's a unique area to bring a development to, and I know it's been sitting there for a long time, so thank you. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes. Good luck, Ms. Dixon. Thank you. I don't see that anyone has signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, so there is no point in having a city council or administration response or reply. There are no postponed items, so we will move to regular business. I-1A are mayoral appointments. There are 3 appointments that I would like to move this evening. For the Downtown Development Authority, I would like to move the appointments of Ward Randall Jr., Ernest Reske, and Douglas Schroeder for the terms that expire 9/30/2022.
Support.
Okay. Moved by the chair and the loudest, Councilman Pennington. Supported. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you to those citizens for volunteering for that important position. Next, I would like to move the appointment of Ani Fakori, Saida Mohidin to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the terms that expires 10/30/2021.
Support.
I got you.
It's hard to be louder than Councilman Henderson.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick that we appoint Ani Fakori, Saida Mohidin to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the terms that expire 10/30/2021. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes, and thanks to those citizens also for that important appointment. That concludes the mayoral appointments this evening. I will defer to Mayor Pro Tem Baker for city council appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the appointments of Patrick Flock and Al Petrulis to the Animal Control Appeal Board for both terms expiring September 30th, 2021.
Support.
I got it. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baker and supported by Councilman Hamilton that we appoint Patrick Flock and Flash.
Oh, Flash.
Is it Flash? And Al Petrulis, one of us got it right, I think, to the Animal Control Appeal Board for the terms that expire 9/30/2021. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
That concludes the appointments this evening. Next are Mayoral nominations. I have one nomination to place this evening. And I would like to move to nominate Barbara Fowler to the Planning Commission. I know he can't be replaced, but to replace the position of my friend Don Edmonds for the term that expires 12/31/2019.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilwoman Hoderick that we nominate Barbara Fowler to the Planning Commission for the term that expires 12/31/2019. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Motion passes. There are no city council nominations this evening. So I3 is a request for closed session. There is no request this evening. I4 is the...
Mayor, I'm sorry. There is a proposed resolution. I would defer. There is a recommendation as well. So if council wishes to have us proceed with the recommendation, then there is no need for a closed session. But I did want to provide an opportunity for you, if you had any questions, to be able to call a closed session.
Thank you. I missed that. Anyone wish to call a closed session this evening?
There's no need to move any resolution, Mayor, if there's no interest in calling it.
Thank you. I4 is the pursuit of a redevelopment-ready community certification. I see Drew Benson, the assistant to the city manager, is coming forward for an introduction of this issue.
Good evening.
Good
Mayor
evening.
Slater, members of City Council. It's nice to finally have an opportunity to present this to you. This is a project that has been going on well before my time here. So I'd like to give a big thank you to Carolyn Radzwin, our management assistant, along with Glenn, Brent, and Carlisle Wortman, our planning consultants. The Redevelopment Ready Communities Program is a program put on by the state of Michigan that recognizes and rewards communities that implement community development best practices. So having effective redevelopment strategies in place, implementing things like pre-development meetings, having approval processes for permits, things like that, that not every community can adhere to or does not. This program recognizes those communities and provides incentives for them. They can come in the form of grants, can come in the form of additional promotion of available redevelopment opportunities through the state's various channels, as well as technical assistance opportunities in terms of completing the portions of the best practices that maybe for the city of Troy in this instance maybe isn't adhering to, and also additional training opportunities. So it really is, with there not being a cost associated directly with participating in the program, it's something that the state is doing to incentivize communities to participate. So it is a three-step process. Right now, we are in the early stage, or kind of the late stages of the first step, the engagement stage. We have had members of the city staff participate in the best practice trainings. It is a series of 2 days of training, 2 full day, parts 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6. To go along with that, we have completed a comprehensive self-evaluation that was included in your packet to give you an understanding of what the criteria are that the MEDC is looking for communities that could earn this certification. Generally speaking, the City of Troy adheres to the majority of the published best practices. That includes having your master plans available online, having a capital improvements plan that is updated on an annual basis. So a lot of the few best practices that the city does not currently adhere to are things that can be identified, or that have been identified and can be dealt with pretty quickly. So at this point, completing those first 2 stages of step 1 in the engagement, at this point we wanted to bring it all to you all to ask, if this is a program that going forward you all would be interested in participating in. By passing a resolution of intent to participate, it lets the MEDC know that we are prepared to move forward, and then we can move on to step 2. The state of Michigan would then take a look at the evaluation that we did, come in and do their own evaluation, provide their feedback, and then we can move through the process of having the formal certification bestowed upon us, hopefully. So, as I suppose I gave you the next one as well. So that's what we're looking for tonight. I won't drag this out too much, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Thank you, Drew. I think it was pretty self-explanatory in the presentation you gave us on a copy. So, any questions from council? Councilwoman Hoderick.
As you're talking, this question popped in my mind. This is in addition to being a one-stop ready community with Oakland County?
Yes.
It's an additional asset,
yes,
in other words?
It's a step above being a one-stop ready community. There are more incentives involved with it. One-stop ready is only applicable to Oakland County communities, but there is a lot of overlap to it. That's part of what makes sense for the city to pursue this certification, is because it is that kind of good housekeeping seal of approval that not only within Oakland County, but within the state, and really for developers or people who are interested in investing in this community, it says on the state level we've been recognized for being a safe place to invest and that has plans for moving forward.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council would like to propose a resolution. Councilwoman Abraham.
I'll move I-4, pursuit of the redevelopment ready community certification as printed.
Support.
Who was that support? Moved by Councilwoman Abraham and supported by Councilman Hamilton that we approve I-4, which is the pursuit of the redevelopment ready communities certification as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion passes. Good luck. I-5 is the request for approval to accept an offer to purchase city-owned remnant parcel section 27 Sidwell number 88-20-27-277-017. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for entertaining this request to purchase a city-owned parcel. It comes from Stellar Hospitality, LLC. The city-owned parcel is highlighted in yellow on the map. It is located at Rochester Road with about 40 feet of frontage on Rochester and about 620 feet along Owendale. It's not a parcel that can sustain a serious development. Stellar Hospitality has proposed a 5-story, 123-room Spring Hill Suites Hotel with 130 parking spaces proposed, 90 on the site, and 40 would be calculated into the city-owned parcel which they wish to purchase. Today, I believe the Planning Department received a special use application for approval from the Planning Commission, and that's under review here by staff, and a date in front of the Planning Commissions to be determined. The plan was, prior to presenting you with this agreement, staff ensured that all the items listed in the remnant and excess sales guidelines as set by City Council in Resolution 2007-01028 were met. This included a review by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee as to the feasibility of using this parcel as a park, obtaining an appraisal to establish fair market value, and submittal of a conceptual plan, site plan, by the prospective buyer. In short, that's what we have. If you have questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councilman Hamilton.
So will this be dependent on Planning Commission providing the special use approval, or?
That is a separate
Okay.
issue.
So they'll purchase this even before they?
Correct.
Get that special, okay.
They would incorporate this, if they have possession of the site, they would incorporate this into their site as, it would allow them to build the additional story, I believe. It would be 5 stories instead of 4.
So they could buy this and then not?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor?
Mr. Miller?
We could have Ms. Figel expand upon the deed restrictions.
Well, the deed restriction, including the purchase agreements, state that they would have to follow all requirements and guideline zoning and so on.
Councilman Henderson.
If they were to purchase this and then not build, obviously, then they have this parcel, we don't. Is there a way to write up a letter of intent instead? And then if they get approval and they decide they're going to move forward, or some solidification of that process, then we make the sale, or is that not typical?
Well, certainly direction would come from you. It's not typical. This is a parcel that we held on to in anticipation of MDOT perhaps using it for MDOT reconstruction and project. Mr. Bill has been in touch with MDOT, and
And I can speak to that. We did run it by MDOT because of the upcoming I-75 project. We didn't know if they would need it for ramp improvements, for storage areas, anything like that. They confirmed that they have no use for it, and really has no use to anyone other than a development on that site because of its orientation and size. 40 feet of frontage doesn't give you anything, but attached, it gives them the parking that they need. It's kind of an off-site parking on a street that doesn't have high volume of traffic, so they're able to put a pedestrian connection in and utilize a parcel that otherwise just sits kind of vacant.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
That was kind of my question. The property can't be developed really any other way because of its narrow. No, there's really no use for it, and it is kind of I guess a real good use as part of this project. I mean, it's just kind of off-site parking, so that it's a one-way in and a one-way out. There's not a lot of traffic in and out of that Owendale. There's not a lot of traffic right now, and with parking, it's just going to be kind of the circular back and forth. So, it seems to be a good use for it.
This isn't a normal abutting remnant parcel where we offer it to an abutting property owner. It really doesn't abut anything except for the ramp on I-75. We did offer it to, or I did contact by mail, the property owners in parcel B and C, which in proximity could use this in some way, and they did not respond to us. So basically, it's either someone who wants it for whatever use, or the best use at this point is to connect it in usage for parcel A as highest and best use, or and the highest value would be for Stellar.
Mayor?
City Attorney Bloom.
I just want to clarify as well that there is no promise that they can do the development. They will have to go through all of the processes. So the sale of this land pursuant to a remnant parcel, there has been no guarantee that they will be able to do what they are proposing to do.
Understood. I think in your letter that was attached to the, or your note to us indicated that actually the amount 75,000 is probably more, it's higher than it would be normally for a piece of property that size, because you were able to assess it because it did attach to the other property. Is that how I read that?
We negotiated up.
Okay. Councilman Pennington.
It sounds like basically a no-lose situation for the city. It's a piece of property that no one's ever going to build on, and so it's perfect for a parking lot. Was there anything there? Was that where the Bill O'Reilly little building used to be? Yeah. So that building was a very small.
Yeah, we acquired this property back in '99 with the first phase of Rochester, the I-75 to Torpy piece, and that's when we acquired this. And that O'Reilly was on the front part of this parcel. Amazing that you could actually have a building on that little parcel, but that was acquired with federal dollars back in '99.
Yeah, so it's basically a no-lose situation for us.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Abraham.
You had mentioned that if this property were acquired, it may be folded into I'll say, a larger project for this hotel. If they didn't get this property, I think you said this enables them to go from 4 stories to 5, or did I mishear you?
That's my understanding. I'm not versed in planning but I would defer to Mr. Miller or someone.
Mayor, Council, the developer came to the planning department and needed more parking than what the site could possibly offer. So they saw the vacant property and the opportunity, and then discussed with us. And then our parking actually made their project more valuable because they could park and have more units. So it's twofold. One, it provided more parking that they needed, and it allowed them to be a little more intense.
So maybe I'll state the question a little bit differently. Is the acquisition of this property an enabler for them to get a 5-story building on Rochester Road?
It is partially both, to serve the need at a lower density and increased density.
But it is a special use, which will go to the Planning Commission, and they will make the decision. It will not come to City Council.
Correct.
Yeah, and the plans were just submitted, I think Friday they came through the system. So everybody's getting their first look at it now. I mean, this is kind of just a snapshot, but we've got still traffic study and all that stuff to go through. That was submitted as well, so it'll go through the full-blown review.
Councilwoman Hoderick.
I think I know the answer to this question, but this isn't like a green space where we could have a park along the ramp for I-75 or, just to be clear, I think we all intuitively know that because we're looking at more detail than maybe the people watching, but we come under fire for that. This is not a park, a potential park or something like that for us, right?
No, and one of the resolution that City Council requested that we go through a checklist, and one of those was to go to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to see if it meets the feasibility of a neighborhood park, a pocket park, and they saw no merit in that.
Okay, I just wanted to emphasize.
And if I can just address your point, Mr. Mayor, when you talked about the appraised value, and I didn't mean to sort of give away all of our sort of negotiations, and they were lengthy. But when you're appraising to you or I, it would be at a lesser value, and those who are looking at it to acquire it, to incorporate it into a project, it has more value to them financially, and we worked on the basis of that when speaking with them and negotiating with them.
I know how you negotiate. I think you've actually negotiated the City of Troy property for free.
There's a benefit to parts. Nothing is for free.
We didn't have to pay for it, I know that. Okay.
It's a benefit to all.
I know. I know how you negotiate. You're very good. You're very good. Councilman Henderson.
I'm not averse to asking the dumb questions, okay? So bear with me for this, and this probably goes to City Manager Miller. A piece of property like that, being across the street, and then qualifying as parking, how does that differ from if you wanted to put that same parking maybe a block away? I mean, is it just because it's on an adjoining street?
The Planning Commission has the discretion that whether it's feasible and available, and to approve that as part of the site plan.
Any other questions? A lot of questions. Good job. You answered them all. Thank you. Somebody like to move the resolution for Councilman Henderson?
I'd like to move I-5, request for approval to accept an offer to purchase city-owned remnant parcel, Section 27, Sidwell 88-20-27-277-017, as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilwoman Hoderick, that we approve I-5, the request for approval to accept the offer to purchase city-owned remnant parcel as printed. Discussion further?
Mayor, just one last question. At the next council meeting, we have we're going to have a public hearing about design standards as well as height of buildings for the GB district, and I believe this parcel of land is in the GB district. If that language were to get adopted next week, would the application that was submitted last Friday be subject to the new language that might be approved on the 19th?
City Attorney Bloom.
We would have to look into that matter and see. I mean, again, we just got the documentation. I don't know if it's a complete site plan or not. There are a number of different factors that would fall into that determination.
Thank you.
Any other comments? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. Any council member wish to pull a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilman Hamilton, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented in the agenda packet. Any discussion on those items? Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment briefly on J5 regarding the emergency notification and the civic engagement app. I'm very happy to see this moving forward. We talked about this quite a bit after there was a water issue up in the northwest section of Troy a year ago?
2 years.
2 years ago? Right, 2 years ago. So I'm thankful to see this. And I know that Chief Mayor actually had worked a lot on this, and I'm sure a lot of his staff had. So thank you all for working on this. I'm happy to see it go through. Well, presumably anyway, go through.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Don't you usually do about 5 in a row?
3.
3? Okay.
Cutting back.
Any further discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you're here on a consent agenda item this evening, they've all been approved. Next are memorandums and future council agenda items. K1A is an announcement for a public hearing November 19th, 2018, zoning ordinance text amendment, file number ZOTA 252, which are design standards, and K1B, which is also November 19th, 2018, a zoning ordinance text amendment, file number ZOTA 253, which are building height in GB general business zoning districts. Next is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, and I'll call upon John Eshrich, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening. As you're coming up, please pay attention to the lights. You'll be given 3 minutes for your comments. When the green light comes on, your 3 minutes start, and then when the yellow light comes on, you'll have 1 minute left, and please try to wrap it up at that point.
I have my own timer, so there won't be a problem.
Okay.
My name is John Eshrich. I've lived in Troy for 50 years, and I watched the city grow from humble beginnings. Some 55 years ago, I was a member of a council in the city of Clawson, and I was president of the JCs and kind of a community activist. In Troy, I witnessed the school system that went from being one of the worst in Oakland County when my children went there to being one of the best in the state of Michigan today. One of the reasons for that is immigration. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but 30% of the people in Troy are of Indian descent. The people are dedicated to education. They turned our school system around. and it is now one of the best in the state of Michigan. In 2015, I think it was, there were 3 students that had straight A's all the way through school and perfect SAT tests. All 3 were Indian. In addition to that, several years ago, our library was #1 in the state of Michigan, and believe it or not, #10 in the United States. That's really quite outstanding, I think. Okay? My memory's failing, but several years ago, it seems to me, we had a city manager leave for a better job, whatever it was. He left. I'm not too well versed on it. Anyway, his successor was a man who seemed to have a little bit of a problem with finances, city finances, and the council kind of overlooked it and gave him a second shot, but the FBI ended the second shot. I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't need to go into that. In his place, a man named Miller was appointed the temporary manager. Some years ago, we had a similar situation in Clawson, where a man, the city manager left to go to another community, and they appointed a man named Ed Hermoyan, who had almost identical background to Mr. Miller. He ended up for years, as he turned out to be a good manager. So I'm wondering why we're looking for a replacement to Mr. Miller. Okay? I recently passed, when I came to City Hall to meet Mr. Miller, I'd never met him before. I went the wrong way when I got off the elevator, and I walked down and came all the way to the treasurer's office. I figured I'm not going to waste my time. So I asked people as I came back, shall I stop?
Mr. Eshridge, if you can wrap it up in 30 seconds, I'll ask.
I think I can.
Okay, if you could just wrap it up in 30,
Okay.
I'll ask for consensus.
Okay, anyway, thank you. I went down the hall, and instead of wasting my time, I stopped and asked 5 people, starting at the treasurer's office, what they thought of Mr. Miller. One said, he's doing a fine job. That was the worst recommendation. The other 4 people said, he's doing a great job. I wonder, what's missing? What am I missing? Okay? I think Mr. Miller should keep his job. Like the old Irish lady that just take care of my kids said, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. Okay? The whole thing that got me going, I'm too old to be involved in this stuff anymore, okay? I'm going to be 90 years old pretty soon, and this is out of my stuff now. Anyway.
We thank you for your comments.
Thank you. What really got me going was somebody posting a comment, the Good Old Boys Club. That really perked my interest. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you for your comments.
Sure.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Get your phone.
Get your phone.
Don't forget your phone, sir.
Mr. Your phone?
Your phone.
Thank you. I would have missed it sooner or later.
Next, I'll call on Aaron Green, Troy resident, wishes to speak this evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I am speaking on the same topic. Mine is a simpler question. I also wonder why Mr. Miller was not considered further, and I did ask you online but received no response, Mayor. I would like to know, to the best of your reasonable ability without impugning anyone, why Mr. Miller was not considered instead of someone who has only managed a smaller city, who is someone who has been only assistant city manager, and someone who has not managed a city. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up to speak on public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Next is an opportunity for council to comment or city management. Mayor Pro Tem Baker. I think you're coming up later. Maybe it got put in a different spot, but I see your name under public comment for items not on the agenda from Members of the public outside of Troy? If that's an error, I'll be happy to call you up. We're going to get to you real soon. Thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you both for speaking today. I appreciate your comments and your concerns and your thoughts. I think they're very valuable. And, you know, I am actually very thankful to City Manager Miller for the work he's done since March, when he took over in, frankly, what was kind of a hellish situation for not just us up here, but the whole city. And I think he's done a very good job under those circumstances. There's no question. I do want to thank you, Mark, for what you've done and how you've led the city. And I also believe that on Thursday, we will be interviewing 3 fantastic candidates for city manager. And I'm very confident that any of the 3 of them could lead the city with excellence, with the ethics we need, and be a great city manager for our city. You know, someone just mentioned the Good Old Boys Club. I often get pinned as voting with this 3 or that 3. And for those of you who pay close attention, you know which 3 I'm talking about, which time. But you know, what's really interesting, you know, I make decisions up here at the table on my own, all by myself. You know, I have since I've been on council for 3 years. This particular decision on who we put through to the final round of interviews, I wasn't influenced by anybody. I didn't have conversations with people about what I should do or shouldn't do. I came to that decision on my own, and you know, I promised that I would when I became a council member, and I'll continue to make those decisions for myself without influence of other council members. I don't think that's the way it works up here, and that's not how you best serve. You know, I also, one last thing, I do recognize on Thursday night, you know, the city staff will have an opportunity to meet with the council, the city manager candidates. The public will have an opportunity. You know, I guess I'll be first to say, if for some reason one of those 3 is not suited to be our city manager, we can't come to pick someone, you know, Mr. Miller would be considered still. He's currently our city manager. My decision on Saturday the 27th was never that I absolutely don't want one person or another. It was that I wanted to interview 3 other people, and those are the 3 that I chose. So I guess from my perspective, I want the city and the city staff to understand, the community to understand that I certainly wouldn't be going with a devil I don't know if it was too risky. I certainly am well aware of what our options are, and nothing prohibits us from appointing any of the 3 on Thursday night or at a future meeting, Mr. Miller, or frankly, anybody else. So there's been a lot of talk in the community about what happened and what didn't happen and why. And Mr. Green, to your question, you know, I'm very happy with the 3 candidates that we have moving forward. I think they're all uniquely qualified in their own ways. But like you and every other citizen in this community and people up here, there will definitely have to be questions that are answered before I feel comfortable appointing one of them as our next city manager, as I would figure any of us would feel that way. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Just a couple of comments. I know Mr. Eschrich said that there's a 30% Indian population in Troy. That's not correct. I think you might be referring that we're 30% diversified, but the Indian population is a little smaller than that. But your point's well taken. And I did respond to your email about my thoughts. Mr. Green, I never received anything from you, so I don't know where that. If you try to get a hold of me on Facebook, you're not going to get a hold of me on Facebook, okay? I do not. I use it, or someone posts things for me that are city events so if you use it to talk to me, please use email or call me. Once again, I'm an old dog. There are no council referrals this evening? Oh, yes, there are. And one is a council referral from Councilmember Henderson and Baker. So I will turn the podium over to those council members. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you. I appreciate Councilman Baker partnering with me on this, and I know that I've spoken with other council members, Mr. Hamilton as well. But as a community, the state of Michigan passed the marijuana issue last Tuesday. The city of Troy, however, voted it down 19,508 votes to 18,528 votes. This council last year was instrumental in opting out of the Michigan state law with regard to marijuana use, and I want to further that and take the next step. Since the city of Troy bucked the state vote and further opt out of recreational marijuana, and what that means to us as a community, I don't know at this point. I know that the city attorney is doing a lot of work on this particular topic right now, but I would like to direct city administration to draft an ordinance opting out of recreational marijuana facilities similar to the council's opt-out resolution as allowed under the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, which would prohibit commercial recreational marijuana facilities or operations in the city of Troy. And with that, Councilman Baker would like to add on.
Sure, I'll read the rest of the resolution. Be it further resolved that this ordinance should be presented to the Troy City Council for consideration at the earliest possible opportunity. For me, it's very simple. Obviously, the state voted a certain way, and we can't do anything about that as a city. It's people, I guess, are going to be able to smoke marijuana and carry marijuana in our city. But what I think is important is that we don't have dispensaries in our city. We don't do, similar to the things we opted out of with the Medicinal Marijuana Licensing Act. If we weren't willing to opt in and license those facilities for medicinal purposes, I don't think we should be opting in for recreational purposes either. It's obviously, like I said, we can't prohibit you from doing whatever you're going to do based on the new law, but I don't think there should be dispensaries and other facilities in the city of Troy.
Is it safe to assume that Councilman Henderson moved the resolution and you seconded the resolution at this point so we can get it on the table for discussion?
Yes.
Thank you. The vote, Ms. Dixon, okay.
Yeah, one of the key differences with this, what passed on November 6th and the MMFLA is MMFLA, you opt out by default. But with this proposal passed, you opt in by default. And I am not ready to do that. We don't need to be the first in line. We don't need to be the guinea pig that is the first one to do this. So I thank you, Councilman Anderson, for bringing this up. Or let's just see what happens. I don't think we need to be the first ones to do this.
City Attorney Bloom, I have a couple questions, but you might answer them if you're going to say something.
What I was going to say, and I'm happy to answer questions as well, but I wanted to say that this is something that we will be bringing to you, but the state has a year to adopt its own rules. So it's not going to matter a whole lot if you don't pass this at your next meeting. And I know that some of you had actually contacted me in anticipation that it might pass. And ask whether or not we needed to act on it at this meeting. And no, you do not need to act at it at this meeting. I would also indicate that there will be other changes that will be required because now possession of marijuana for under 21 is now going to be, they're civil infractions. So we will need to bring other changes to you. Our focus at this point in time is the training and making sure that our police department is well advised and knows what the new rules will be, what the new law is going to be bringing. But we'll bring it to you as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Just another quick comment. It came into my mind when you mentioned something, and I don't know, it's obviously, we're not talking about next year's budgeting at all, but perhaps the police department and the budgeting folks should work with the Troy Community Coalition, and potentially if there's a need for excess funds for additional education, I would certainly be supportive of something along those lines depending on what they are. But it changes things dramatically, and I know they were very concerned about what this would do for their work in the community. So I'm very supportive of the coalition, obviously, and if they need additional help, we might need to look at that.
Thank you. Just a legal question. City Attorney Bloom, you indicated that we didn't really need to do this at this point, and I don't know that I'm ever in favor of making laws just for the sake of making laws, but even if we pass this ordinance, would it have any teeth at all at this point if the state of Michigan is still going to set the rules within a year? Are we being a little premature here?
No, you actually can adopt this because basically all you're saying is that we do not want to have any of the commercial establishments in the city. Another thing too is that once you opt out, you can always change your mind at a later point in time. So it's not a permanent decision. However, if you opted in, you can't ever decide that you really meant to opt out. So it is, I appreciate your comments, Mayor. It is going to be about a year before they do any of the rules. We expect that they will be very similar to the rules that they have for the medical, under the MMFLA for the facilities, but they do have about a year. But if you want to opt out, you certainly can do that at any point in time.
And what kind of facilities are we talking about? I don't have any problem, passing this resolution today to take a look at the ordinance that might be proposed, but maybe I should wait and see what it says. But my understanding is, aren't we talking about retail establishments?
There will be retail, there'll be testing, there'll be some of the growing operations, the larger scale grow operations. So it would be commercial. Right now, under the MMFLA, there are 5 separate ones. There's a transport, processing, growing, and the provisioning center in the city.
But they're not going to set those rules for a year, so how are we going to know that that's what they're going to do by opting out?
They've indicated that it's going to be very similar. So we don't know for sure, but they've indicated that it is going to be very similar. And you will need all of those items in order to, under the state law, as it's proposed. You'll need to have all of those to make sure that the marijuana has been tested and is of higher quality.
I don't, like I said, I don't have any problem voting for the resolution to see what the ordinance is going to look like. And I definitely want to go on record saying that I would never be in favor of recreational marijuana ever. I think Mitch Albom wrote an outstanding article in the Free Press on Sunday regarding it. I want to see this council do what he's proposing. And that is, it's here, we're stuck with it, but 10% is the tax that's going to be on marijuana. And I think we need to tell our legislators that that has to go up. If some people pass this because they thought we were going to get a windfall of money, they're sadly mistaken. We're going to be the lowest in the country as far as taxing recreational marijuana, and we need to change that, in my opinion. So I would encourage everyone to read Mitch Albom's article Sunday. I think he shares my philosophy. Councilman Henderson.
So I brought this forward with Councilman Baker, and my thoughts on it are, a year ago we were presented with the idea that 70 some odd marijuana grow operations popped up in the city of Troy, and council didn't even know about it. It just organically grew that way. And when it was alerted, or we were alerted, we had to do what we needed to do to try to tamp that down. And my goal in all of this is to keep that from happening. The last thing that we need is all of a sudden a facility pops up on a street corner to sell retail marijuana, and that's not our intent, I hope, as a body here. So whatever it takes for us to do that, is what my goal is.
Councilman Hamilton, did you?
Yeah, just for information for Troy residents, I believe that after the vote is certified, 10 days later is when consuming marijuana becomes legal recreationally, but it'll take time for the licensing system for people to legally sell it. So, and I think that ends up being somewhere in early December is where it's actually will become legal. It's not yet legal because the vote hasn't been certified. Just to inform residents.
Councilman Hoderick.
And even when that becomes legal, you still could be at risk in jobs and so forth, just like if you drink alcohol and go to work, or let's just be clear what's legal. And those that are going to be pursuing this recreationally need to make sure they understand what that means, what legal really means, and what their risk is in their workplaces and in terms of driving. And we're going to be going through a learning curve, and you don't want to end out at the bad end of that curve. So make sure you're very wise and very smart as you go forward.
Very well put. I am proud to say as a Spartan that I got an email today from the president telling all alumni and students that marijuana will not be tolerated and will be enforced at Michigan State University. Any other discussion on this resolution? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Motion passes. Do you anticipate having that ordinance in 1 week?
No.
Oh, I thought you said at the next meeting you were going to...
The earliest opportunity, so...
no, I thought you said at the next meeting, but you did not.
I'm
okay.
not there yet.
Next year's fine. Councilman Henderson.
Can I ask one piggyback question on that is, what's the city policy in the event somebody comes to us and says, we would like to put a facility, a retail operation here? And understanding that the laws from Michigan are probably not going to hit us that quick.
At this point in time, they cannot get permission from the state. They'd need to be licensed by the state in order to be able to operate as a business. So the larger commercial businesses, they will not be able to operate until the state allows them to operate. And then if you do pass a resolution completely opting out, then they will not be able to be operating in the city of Troy at all.
Okay, and you see that us opting out could happen before the state gets their act together, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it can.
Mayor?
City Manager Miller.
This conversation happens all the time in the planning department, and Planning Director Sabana will say, there's no rule, there's no means to move forward. Okay. And it happens more than you would think, maybe 2-3 times a day.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are council comments. Any comments from council this evening? Councilwoman Hoderick.
There's always so many great things going on around the city, and I wanted to highlight something from last week, and that was a Troy Chamber event called the CEO Breakfast. And there was a guest speaker, Nate Forbes, CEO of our Somerset Collection, and he shared with a large gathering of people the work he's doing, the visioning he's doing as retail and online retail comes into being. What does that mean to the Somerset Collection? How does the Somerset Collection evolve? He shared thoughts about the work he's doing and viewing the collection as something as part of the region and the importance of having a regional view. That said, he had a very Troy focus, much a Troy focus, in that he said he remains committed to being that gateway entry place there in Troy. And of course, he did touch on everyone's favorite topic in the city of Troy, the Kmart property, and shared similar information, nothing really new from what we've heard in the past, but where they're looking at what do they do there that complements that gateway, that essentially, bottom line, has a business case, and that they're constantly looking at that. So they're continuing to work. They hope to be able to share some ideas down the road. It is on his mind. It was very much a wonderful visioning exercise with him as he shared insights about what they're doing. And it was, yet another wonderful Troy Chamber event that provided some business insight. Related to that, I just wanted to mention they do have their main event of the year is their annual holiday luncheon. Just wanted to put a little plug for it here. Is on December 13th. They will have a panel of CEOs from Michigan brands. This year it's Rufino Valentine, the founder and president of Valentine Distilling Company, Joseph McClure, the co-founder and co-owner of McClure's Pickles, and Andrew Shimoleski, the co-founder and CEO of Dave's Sweet Tooth. The panel will be moderated by Rhonda Walker of WDIV Local 4 News. And each year, hearing from entrepreneurs, people that are working in the business world, their thoughts, their ideas, their challenges. They usually have humorous stories. And it's a great insight, I think, for local elected officials and anyone attending the event to kind of get inside the head of the people that try to create work and jobs for us while they manufacture Michigan products here. So if you have a chance to take a look at that, if you Google Troy Chamber of Commerce and get to their website, it's a prominent item on their website, and I would encourage folks to check that out.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson.
So let me address the scruffiness on City Council and some of the employees. This is Movember, and Movember is a men's health awareness month. I've been affected by cancer myself. At the age of 49, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I take every opportunity I can to make others aware, especially men at a younger age, because I had no idea at 49 years old that was even on the radar for me. So early detection, awareness are all things that men can do proactively to create a situation where you can be cured and not have any adverse effects from a disease that's very prevalent in the male society. A little disappointed Ellen and Edna didn't grow their beards out, but I'll get over that.
Okay. I'm going to hold you to that. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you.
Follow that.
Yeah, I can't. A couple of quick things. First, we haven't had a meeting since our Frightful 5K on the 28th, and I just want to thank city staff and the Recreation Department and all of the city staff who worked so hard. It was freezing cold early in the morning and dark, and many of you were out there setting things up and working hard and trying to make it a great event. And we've had it's changed who's been leading it the past couple of years, and I think you did a great job getting this year. And I know Elaine's not here, and I don't see anyone else from the rec department. But if they're watching, thank you. It was a great race. Like I said, it was very cold, but it is always beautiful to run down Big Beaver and around the Civic Center campus and see costumes and see people having a good time on a Sunday morning in Troy. And also, I wanted to thank the city clerk for working so hard with everybody for Election Day, for what was a huge turnout and all the work you did and your team and all the volunteers. And I went around to a few different polling locations on Tuesday, and they were all packed. So everyone really worked hard, and I want to thank you for that smooth work, even though it was a little late for the absentee ballots. That's not your fault, though. It's the equipment, as I understand, but he did a great job, so thank you for everything.
Other council comments? As long as you're talking about the 5K, I got an opportunity. Last year I missed getting on the ride to start the race. This year I made it on the little truck, but unfortunately Councilman Henderson didn't make it on this year, so he took my place.
Took a tumble. Thanks.
And he has video if you want to see it.
Just 10 seconds.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, I thought to keep my time better, I just ran right by him because I saw him laying there on the ground. But Councilman Henderson, I'm sure you're okay, and I'd love to see that video on Facebook because it's very entertaining.
There's a video of you stepping right over him as he's flailing.
That's true.
That is true.
Just one comment. Mayor Pro Tem Baker indicated that Thursday there is public engagement that starts at 5 p.m. I would encourage all citizens and employees to come meet and greet the finalists for city manager, and then we are going to start interviews at 7 p.m. Each candidate will be given an hour, which will take us till 10, and then we'll make a decision at that point if we're going to keep going that night or come back at a different time. So please come out on Thursday. Next are reports. Are there any comments from council regarding the reports? I just have a comment. Drew Benson did, I thought, an excellent job on the electric rental scooters report. Well done, very quick return. Looks like it might not be a good idea for us at this point, but we'll always keep our eyes open. So thanks for doing that. Councilman Hamilton.
This is probably more of just a general comment, but I want to thank the Troy Police Department. Earlier today in the city of Troy, there was a homicide, and there was a chase of the perpetrator after it, and our police did an incredible job to take him in. And it's a solemn and rare event in Troy, and I just want to deeply thank our police force for what you did to handle that incident.
Councilwoman Hoderick, did you? That was it. Okay.
Ditto.
Ditto. Okay. I was talking, Chief Nastasi, first Monday. Welcome.
Good to be on board.
Yeah. I'm sure it was a tough Monday. I now get to call up Lorraine Campbell. I don't know if that was a mix-up, Lorraine, or not, but thanks for sticking around tonight.
Not a problem. I am Lorraine Campbell, Executive Director of the Troy Historic Village for the Troy Historical Society, which on record is a nonprofit business operating in Troy for 51 years. Sometimes I think we get confused when we talk about nonprofits as if they are not businesses, but we are. We just don't distribute dividends at the end of the year. My comments tonight are on the report you received, P2C, the rejection of a bid to restore the Niles Barnard House. There are legal and financial and historic reasons why restoration of this structure is important and proper and required. I think the city attorney can best address the legal considerations that you as owners of a historic resource in a locally designated historic district have. I know she has done that in the past. I know that she can reaffirm that. You would expect me to talk about the historic considerations, and while they may be paramount to me as an individual or for my profession, I want to talk about the report that you received tonight, which basically deals strictly with the financial considerations. You received one bid, it was over budget, and it was that sole source. I want to bring you up to date on what really has happened. The Troy Historical Society on its own, not as part of your agreement to accept that house as a gift, but on its own, has invested $800,000 to buy land to expand the village, which you gratefully accepted, to complete a site plan, which you approved unanimously, and to move the building in 2010 in the midst of a recession. That move on that day cost over $360,000. You had no problem accepting that. Since 2011, we have operated the village for you through a renewable agreement. We have been intent on that. And minimally, we have saved you $1.5 million in operations costs. I think that's a minimal number. In addition, we have been busy doing exactly what you asked us to do, pointedly, directly, and I might say sometimes a bit rudely, that we make village operations sustainable.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Let me see if I can get consensus from council to let you continue. Can you wrap it up?
In a minute.
In 1 minute?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Could I get consensus?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. We went for a National Endowment for the Humanities grant, a challenge grant of $50,000, which we matched with $50,000 that we raised in restricted donations, to infuse that restored building with programs and facilities rentals. I am now rejecting requests to book that building because it sits empty and shuttered. In the last 2 weeks, I spent $6,000 buying tables and chairs and furnishings for a building through a second grant from the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs. I had to buy it. My grant deadline was there. We have moved forward to make operations sustainable using that building. This evening, you passed a resolution to be a redevelopment-ready certified city, which said, whereas the City of Troy encourages the redevelopment, reuse, and preservation of existing buildings and parcels in the city. I ask you to please do that. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I think we need to change our rules to allow for response to comments on cue. For some reason, I thought we did that, but
Mayor, could we waive the rules to not?
yeah, we can waive the rules, but could we consider getting the same language put in after cue that we have at the other public comments? Sure.
I can bring a proposed revision next meeting.
Could you do that? Thanks.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt, but I believe that would have fallen under public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residences and businesses, because there was a report.
Yeah.
Probably should have fallen in that.
Probably should have. I don't know why it got put there, but it certainly could have. Yeah. Certainly could have. But I'll move to waive the rules if there's consensus to allow for response.
Support.
Okay. Do we need to vote on? Is that a consensus issue?
Add an item, but it was a mistake. It should have been under that other section, so you can provide comments.
Okay. And if you could work on that language for next thing, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine, for coming forward. I read the report. I have questions that came from it. I'm not sure if it's best to ask them here or to email, but I will do a couple of both. I appreciate your passion. Number one, I toured that house with you when we appropriated the $450,000, because that seemed like a lot of money at the time, right? Listen, for me, when I see these numbers, my questions are, and I don't know if they can be answered, obviously, city management's not recommending moving forward at this time, but I don't understand why the bid has gone up so much. Is that related to the fact that it was just one person bidding? Was the scope of work not defined the same way as initially anticipated? If those things could be addressed, that might help me understand a little bit what we're dealing with this specific project. But your points are heard by me, at least, and I understand where you're coming from. And when you look at the dollars and cents and everything of where the village has come and the society, I think those are all good considerations to take in. So thank you.
Any other comments on response? Mr. Miller, did you want to say anything at this point, or did you want to give us something back in writing?
I would prefer to do it in writing.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Baker said. Lorraine, we understand your passion. But it is a big leap in money. And unless I misinterpreted what the letter said, I thought it said that we were going to we weren't just squashing this, we were going to take a look and see if we couldn't just whittle down the proposal. So I think I have to read it again myself, and I would certainly warrant any additional information from you if you want to send it along with staff for the entire council, if you could. Thank you. Councilwoman Hoderick.
One of my questions was related to the report that I sent into city administration earlier is, I worry about your grant being at risk if there's delays. And Mr. Bovenseep indicated that he's researching that and looking into that. So we were already nudging some questions and you and your organization have truly locked arms with the city to protect that gem. And none of us, I don't think, is interested in leaving you hanging. And I think, we're hearing a council that we're here for you and wanting to get this right, while we're also trying to be responsible to our budget and our fiduciary responsibilities. So let's work this out as best we can.
Councilwoman Abraham.
Lorraine, I thank you for everything that you do for the historic village and everything you do for the city. It's one of our crown jewels, that the library, our Parks and Recs facility, our community center. It's the heart of who we are, and it tells us who we are because it reflects back on our origins. You made reference to the legal obligations, and certainly if it wasn't at this last year's budget sessions, I think it might have been in 2017, where I think there was certainly a lot of enlightenment by council in terms of, well, this isn't just a nice to have, this is something we have to do. We are obligated to support, I'll say, the upkeep and maintenance of those buildings. Partly because it is a historical building and partly because it's part of our agreement, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that is definitely well impressed upon us, and I think now it's just trying to understand how the estimate is, I don't want to say doubled, but it's gone up significantly, and certainly some of the abatement that you can't ever anticipate until you actually get the experts in looking for things like lead in the paint, or just looking at the condition of the building. It may be worse than first suspected. So that, to me, that was very clear. I think there was, I'll say, an incremental amount above that, which I couldn't quite wrap my head around how it got up to 1.2 million. The abatement I understand. I didn't understand the rest. So I know we can move forward. I think we're all, I shouldn't speak for council, I am certainly aligned to the obligations of what the city owes to the historic village. I certainly value the historic village. You see me there on a pretty regular basis. So we will work through this. We're not just brushing by this report. I think all of us looked at it pretty seriously, and I look forward to getting more details from you and from staff on the best way to proceed, and certainly making sure that we protect the $50,000 grant, which is not an easy thing to get. We want to make sure that we can hold on to it.
Thank you. Other comments, response? Councilman Henderson?
Yeah, I also appreciate the work of all of our nonprofits in Troy that do a lot of work to try to keep the nice things that we have here in Troy. What concerns me about this is we had, we know the building's old, so it's going to have lead paint. That's a kind of real estate 101. Certainly there were some abatement costs that had to have been considered in the original bid. The original bid was, or the original estimate was $450,000, which we approved, and then it jumped to $1.2 million, which is 3 times what the original approval was for this council. So I'm not opposed to having that building done, and I understand the importance of that building as has been explained to us in the past, but I also don't, I think we need more bids, and that maybe the scope of work has to be dialed back a little bit in order to be able to fit closer within that budget. Simply because we have one bidder that says, oh, you need this, that, and the other thing, doesn't necessitate a tripling of the budget that we initially put out. So I'm interested to see what city staff has to come back to us with regard to more bids, scope of work, and that kind of thing before I'm ready to make a decision to triple that budget.
I think I'm hearing from all council that we're looking forward to the input, and we'll keep looking at this further. There is no closed session this evening, so thank you for coming tonight. We are adjourned.